Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 11 quarterback and tight end rankings. So for today's episode, I'm going to combine both of my quarterback and tight end rankings, which I usually record separately together for this week, just in order to save myself some time and to get you my rankings sooner. Usually I wait until Fridays to give tight end rankings because that's mostly the most optimal schedule for me as of right now. But as of today, I'm feeling generous. I had a little bit of extra time on my hands, so I'm bringing you the quarterback and tight end rankings. We'll go through the quarterbacks first. Then once we've gotten through that, we'll go through the tight ends. And that's pretty much it. So without further ado, I want to go ahead, thank all of you who have already subscribed. If you haven't already, go down, click that subscribe button for more content on the daily. And that's basically it. So, again, if you haven't yet, please click that subscribe button. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get right into it, shall we? Hey, everybody. How's it going? We're here. This is usually one of my shorter videos, but because I've added the tight ends with the quarterbacks, it's probably going to take some time, right? So, I'm trying to get right into it so we can get to all of our players, all of the specific matchups, and that's exactly what we're talking about as of right now. We're going to talk about the quarterback matchups going into Week 11 of the fantasy football season. Who's got the most advantageous matchup and who plays, some of the tougher defenses in the NFL for this coming week. So to begin, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are giving up the most points to the quarterback position thus far this season through the first 10 weeks of the NFL season. And they're giving up nearly 29.22 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Now, all of the stats that I go over with the quarterback position consists of 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. For what reason, Andrew, do you like 6-point per passing touchdown leagues? I like the equality of it, right? Just because, a quarterback is going to potentially score more touchdowns because he's possibly going to throw upwards of 3-4 touchdowns in a game, doesn't mean he should get less points for it. That even, in my opinion, by giving them the extra 2 points per touchdown, it makes the quarterback position that much more valuable. So you have to, choose wisely on top of that. And you can't just come out every week with a streamer and end up being, okay. You have to, in the draft, go after a quarterback that is more consistent and can put up touchdowns in order to help your team. But anyway, I digress. I've gone over that in the offseason. Here we are. We're talking about the best and worst matchups going into Week 11. Okay, so who do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play this week? They play against the New York Giants. Eli Manning is going against the worst defense against the quarterback position, giving up, again, 29 points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. I think Eli could be a good play this week in a deeper league. If you play in a 2 QB league, Superflex, Eli could be a decent play. But for many of you who don't, I don't think you'll get to the point to where you have to play Eli. I think there's at least, because today we're going to go over the top 17 quarterbacks. There are more capable guys that you can trust in, that you don't really have to take the risk with Eli. So we'll go over those guys to kind of give you an idea. But as of right now, the way I see it, yes, Eli's going to have a decent matchup. He's going to be okay. He's going to be Eli. Saquon's going to be just fine from it, and so is Odell, and then we'll go over the tight ends later. But as of right now, I don't know if Eli's going to be able to take advantage of this matchup to the fullest of the extent, but as of right now, there's decent confidence from me. In a deeper league, if you're really struggling, very thin, he's an okay play. But anyway, let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. We don't even know who's playing quarterback as of right now for the Ravens, so I can't even make a comment on this. Whether it's, Lamar Jackson or Robert Griffin, which we really haven't seen either of them much this season. We haven't seen any of Robert Griffin. We haven't seen, more than a couple plays a game from Lamar Jackson. And what we've seen of Joe Flacco as of late isn't promising. So I'm trying to stay away from them quarterbacks of the Ravens as of right now. Number 3, the New Orleans Saints, giving up the third most points to the quarterback position thus far this season. That means Carson Wentz should have a good week, and he will. The running game for the Eagles has been pretty suspect this season since J.J. he's gone down with the ACL injury. The guys who have kind of tried to step up and fill that void for the organization just really haven't panned out. And they play against one of the best run-stopping defenses in the league which is the New Orleans Saints. So they're going to be, forced to pass the ball, which is a given because the Saints are going to score. The Eagles are going to be down, and they're going to have to score some points themselves, in which they love to do through the air. Carson Wentz is looking great with Zach Ertz there and Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate. They should be decent, or more like Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, and then we'll see if Golden Tate, Nelson Aguilar, or Jordan Matthews ends up catching that touchdown, or the couple receptions that are going in their direction. The number 4 defense giving up a lot of points to the quarterback position. It's a common thing. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Falcons, they give up a boatload of points to everyone defensively, right? I mean, the Falcons give up the third most to the running back, third most to the wide receiver, and fourth most to the quarterback. I mean, you always want to be playing against the Falcons on a weekly basis. That's why, the teams from the NFC South, like the Carolina Panthers, the Saints, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Falcons themselves, because the teams in their division often end up doing shootouts to try to, pick up W's. Going into the playoffs, those teams are teams that I kind of want to keep my eye out on, because if I can go pick up a guy that is going to be associated with one of those teams and they're going to be playing each other in my league's playoffs, the weeks 14, 15, 16, I kind of want to go get those guys in order to have a piece of those shootouts, but that's a different story. But as of right now, Dak Prescott playing against the Falcons this coming week should honestly have a good week. He's looked better as of late by far. Comparatively to where he was at the beginning of the season, he is much better. He's honestly a guy that I'm going to be mentioning today in my rankings because he's looked more and more of the Dak Prescott of old, of 2 seasons back. And hopefully, with his ability to use his legs, he can find more fantasy value. And I think he's going to be able to do that for many of you this coming week who are thin at the quarterback position. Again, we got a lot of teams on bye week. For those of you who are using Baker Mayfield or Tom Brady, Nick Mullins this past week, I've got you the option. It could be Dak for this week. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers, giving up a lot of points to the quarterback. That means Matthew Stafford has a good opportunity here. How much of an opportunity is that? I'm not sure, because that offense is pretty slow to get moving. With Marvin Jones being out, other than Kenny Galladay and Kerryon Johnson, they're going to have to rely upon guys like Theo Riddick to make a lot of plays. I don't know how sustainable that is going to be for them this coming week, considering the Panthers are coming off of an ass beating that they're not really proud of. So they're going to have to come and lay the wood against the Lions. So we never know. Well, maybe Matthew Stafford could be decent, but otherwise, moving on, the Steelers, again, give up a lot of points to the quarterback. They play against Blake Bortles, though. We'll see how that turns out. Blake wasn't that bad this past week. I mentioned it in last week's waiver wire videos that maybe you should think about picking up Blake Bortles. I start him often. He is my starting quarterback in my super flex league. And guess what? He puts up 20 points, and I'm not complaining. So for those of you, I mean, you need to understand the risk versus reward with playing Blake Bortles. But once you've done the calculations, you realize, okay, if he doesn't perform, I lose, then probably don't go with him. You know what I mean? Unless you have a stable enough lineup to where you can have confidence that, okay, all I need is a range of 15 points to 25 points, and I'm clean. He'll get you that. In 6-point per passing touchdown leagues, by the way. All right, we're moving on. The Patriots are on bye week. The Raiders. Josh Rosen at quarterback? Not really feeling it. I think the wide receivers and David Johnson will be fine, but I'm not sure about Josh Rosen himself. 49ers are on a bye week. The Lions giving up the 10th most points to the quarterback position. Cam is going to have a great week. You'll see it from my rankings. Moving on to the mid-tier teams on the defensive side of the ball. Let's see. Kansas City Chiefs, the Eagles, the Redskins, the Colts. Okay. So that means Jared Goff, that means Drew Brees, Deshaun Watson, and Patrick Mahomes, and Marcus Mariota, because I kind of peeked over to the Rams. They're all going to have good weeks. Why? Because they're some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They've had decently good matchups. Obviously, it's saying that they give up about 20 points to the quarterback position each in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. I could see all of these quarterbacks, literally. Goff, Deshaun Watson, Brees, Mariota and Patrick Mahomes all having plus 25 points this week. Because honestly, as of right now, the depth at quarterback is so, like, it's ridiculous, I think. There has never been this many good quarterbacks in the NFL to the extent that there is. I mean, we know that there are teams that are struggling at quarterback, but that's every year. But as of right now, with the amount of talent and depth that we have at the quarterback position in fantasy, there's no wrong answer. You can go out and find just about anybody and plug them in. They'll do a decent job for you, unless you're trying to plug in Andy Dalton, and then you've got problems. Moving on, Chargers, Denver Broncos, the Jets on a bye week, Cowboys, Bears, Dolphins. We'll go into that a little bit more later. I just wanted to go and highlight over the tougher matchups. The Buffalo Bills, giving up the least amount of points to the quarterback position. That's mainly because teams absolutely destroy them. They get shorter field positioning. They get the ball down, at the 50. They run it in. They score on the ground. And then once they're up 30, they really just run out the clock. So the quarterback never really has to do anything against the Bills. Arizona Cardinals giving up the second fewest amount of points to the quarterback position. Hopefully those of you who were listening to my Monday video went out and picked up the Arizona Cardinals defense. We'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be pretty good. The Seahawks don't give up many points, even though they gave up a good amount of points to Aaron Rodgers, 25 in fact. Tennessee Titans, don't worry, Andrew Luck will be fine. Houston Texans, playing against Washington. Alex Smith's going to struggle. I'm letting you know right now. Moving on, Jacksonville. I'm okay. I'm okay with playing Big Ben into the Jacksonville defense. Jacksonville has not looked the same this season, even though they're statistically looking decent. I can't fully buy in on that. I'm not really afraid of them. Baltimore Ravens. I'm literally not touching Andy Dalton this week. Just never. No, don't. The Giants, Fitzmagic will end up throwing some picks. No big deal. And then we have the Vikings and the Packers. Wow, it's actually insane how much the Vikings. The Vikings, the Bears, they ain't giving up that many points. But honestly, it's all between 5 of each other? I mean, it's such a small margin from being, let's think about this, right? From being the 20th ranked right here, the Dallas Cowboys, you're giving up, almost 20 points. To being the 10th ranked, it's only 3 fantasy points. It's literally only 3 fantasy points. It's literally 30 rushing yards or a combination of somewhere like throwing the ball for extra 50 yards and running for a 10 or getting a 2-point conversion. That's literally all it is. So the margin difference is not that big of a deal. But obviously the upper tier guys that are giving up 30 points per week to the quarterback, that is something to key in on. While looking at guys like down here, the Jacksonvilles, the Houstons, the Titans that don't really give up many points to the quarterback, that's another thing to key in on because there's such a wide margin of a difference. Anyway, those are the stats. Fantasy points against the quarterback, against the defense for the quarterback position. And let's just go ahead. Let's move on. We're going to go talk about some quarterbacks right now for Week 11 of the fantasy football season. Okay, so here we are. Rankings are subject to change. Guys, if any news comes out, somebody gets injured, that's literally all it is. If someone gets injured or someone is back into the lineup, this can change. But otherwise, these quarterbacks should be stable. They should be just fine. Okay, I don't think they'll change very often, or if they do, it'll be guys just flipping spots. It's not going to be like Drew Brees dropping to 12. It's not going to happen. So as of right now, the only other thing I wanted to point out below me right here is Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. They have already played. They will not be included on this video because I've already watched the game. Okay, it's in the fourth quarter. They were kneeing the ball out. I was like, all right, I got to dip. I got to go record a video. So my thoughts on that, we'll get into it next week. But for right now, let's just talk about Week 11 quarterback rankings for this coming week. We're talking about number 1, Patrick Mahomes, playing against the Rams on Monday Night Football. Honestly, the way I see it, it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Patrick Mahomes is a must-start rest of season. If you own Patrick Mahomes, let's not kid ourselves. The dude has thrown 31 touchdowns this season in a 6-point per passing touchdown league, in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. It doesn't matter. He is an absolute monster. He's literally scored and this is not even a joke of a statistic, he has scored 65 more points than the second best quarterback in fantasy. He has 325.8 fantasy points and 6 points per passing touchdown leagues, while Matt Ryan, who is the second quarterback, has only scored 260. Literally 65 points more. Okay? So, by all means, for those of you who go out and are wanting to trade Patrick Mahomes, get rid of him, gosh, I mean, it's so hard. Why would you do that? I don't see like personally, if I was to go about this, there would never be a scenario where I'm thinking, I think I want to go ahead and trade him. Okay, for those of you who perhaps think he's not going to play in Week 16 because they're going to clinch, that is a good reason. But I still what I would do, keep him on your roster, hope he plays in Week 16. Otherwise, grab another guy, throw him in the back of your bench, and see where it goes. Grab a guy like Mariota, throw him in the back of your bench. Or find a guy that has a very good matchup in Week 16 and put him in the back of your bench. Anyway, he's my number one this week. Utmost of confidence. He is the number one quarterback as of right now. I mean, 32 total touchdowns. Gosh, he's 33 total touchdowns. Excuse me. He has 2 rushing touchdowns. He has 158 yards rushing. Dude, oh my goodness. He's so damn good. Okay, anyway, we're moving on. Number 2, we have Drew Brees playing against the Philadelphia Eagles, who give up their fair share of points to the quarterback and wide receiver position. To be honest, here's the deal. Drew Brees is besides Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Jared Goff, who are my top 3, these are the 3 top offenses in the NFL. That is why these 3 guys are up here. If you're the leader, you're the commander, you're the guy leading the ship on the highest scoring offenses in the NFL, by all means, you're going to be able to be fantasy relevant no matter what. Here's the only caveat. If Drew Brees this week comes out and ends up dropping a goose egg, I'll actually be surprised. Because to be honest, as of late, I mean, they dropped 51 on the Cincinnati Bengals, and that wasn't an accident. That's more of a, hey, we're sending a message to people. And honestly, when they're trying to play teams like the Eagles, they played against the Rams the other night, a couple weeks back. They're sending a message to every team in the league that we're nothing to mess around with. We are going to blow you out, and we're going to have fun doing it. This coming week, I like the matchup. To be honest, I don't see the Eagles defense as much of a threat comparatively to what they used to be last season, especially what the Cowboys were able to do through the run game last week. I think that's going to perfectly set up a lot of opportunity for Drew Brees to be fantasy relevant. He's my number 2 quarterback this week. He's a GOAT himself. Moving on to number 3, we have Jared Goff, the second quarterback in that Monday Night Football game. He plays against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, which by all means, here's my only issue, okay? There's a very good opportunity for the Rams to come out and literally run the ball every single play and completely destroy the Kansas City Chiefs. Why? Because the Kansas City Chiefs, they give up the most points to the running back position on a weekly basis. They're giving up nearly 33 fantasy points per week in half-point PPR to the running back position. I mean, Todd Gurley's going to be able to feast. That is a given. And with that in hand, there's always a chance that Jared Goff play actions, throws it to a tight end. It's going to happen. He's going to throw touchdowns. I expect him to have a very good week because, to be honest, Patrick Mahomes and that offense, they're not going to be able to stop it. They're going to try to stop the bleeding to an extent, but they're not going to be able to stop that offense. So it's going to be constant back and forth scoring. For those of you who watch the game, I'm calling it right now. The Chiefs, they're going to come out. They're going to start off hot, and just wait. The Rams, they're a better second half team. You'll see it, okay? So don't worry after that first. Damn it, Andrew, you told me to start. Just wait. They're a better second half team. I'm calling it. All right, number 4, we have Carson Wentz. Just like that draft 2 years ago, it goes Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. All right, Carson Wentz. Here's the thing. You play against the New Orleans Saints defense, and they're giving up the most points to the wide receiver position, and they're giving up, in fact, the third most points to the quarterback position on a weekly basis. By all means, with all the weapons that surround you, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, Golden Tate, Nelson Aguilar, Jordan Matthews, Dallas Goedert, Corey Clement out of the backfield, Wendell Smallwood, a little bit of Josh Adams. With such a good offensive line, by all means, you're going to have a good week. It's a given. I already know. He came out last week You proved to us that still you are consistent enough, even in games where you weren't even playing that well. You found Ertz for a bunch of yards and a bunch of touchdowns, but as of right now, this coming week, I think the Eagles, they have something to prove as of right now, and their record doesn't look pretty. So they're going to have to come out. They're going to have to at least try to win this game in order to keep their playoff hopes alive, especially when the Redskins have already 6 wins in that division. It's going to be tough for them to catch up, but I think he has a pretty good week, has a very good performance. He's my number 4. Number 5, we have Cam Newton going against the Detroit Lions defense, which by all means, speaking of, I always talk about the Raiders trying to throw games. I almost have I have a feeling that the Lions are almost getting to that point where they might even start trying to throw games, because are they going to make the playoffs? They play in a division where the Bears and the Vikings, they already look like they're the top 2 teams in this division. The Lions, if they win out, sure, but are they going to win out? I doubt it at this point. So where do I see the Lions as of right now? They're just a team that's going to try to score some points. They're going to score a little bit of garbage time. Defensively, they're terrible. They're going to get the snot kicked out of them. And I feel like Cam Newton himself, he's going to have a great game. Cam Newton always has good games. With his ability to, rush the ball, end up, having some sort of fantasy production with his legs, he gives himself an extra opportunity that other quarterbacks often don't get. As of this season, he's had already 350 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns on the ground, the most rushing yards from a quarterback this season. To be honest, which is crazy, Mitch Trubisky is only 30 yards away from his rushing total. So, Cam, just get ready. Mitch Trubisky might be the best running quarterback in the league soon, which is insane. But either way, Cam Newton this week, I have a lot of confidence in him. I like the matchup, I think, just because of the fact that the Lions, they're not really in a playoff hunt. They're not really trying to make the playoffs. I could honestly potentially see them getting behind early, and the Panthers just steamrolling them for a good 40-point game. I honestly could see that happening, and 3 touchdowns to McCaffrey. That's what I'm expecting, but hopefully that doesn't happen again. Maybe you can spread the love. You can pass the ball to the Funchess and the Olsen and the DJ Moore and help everybody out. But either way, I think Cam's going to have a good week. He's my number 5. Number 6, we have Andrew Luck, which by all means, Andrew Luck has been an animal this season. Coming off of that shoulder injury from last season where he didn't play a single game, we had a lot of speculation. We had a lot of worry. Okay, is Andrew Luck going to be the old Andrew Luck? We saw him this past offseason BSing around, throwing children's balls at charity events and stuff. We're like, oh my God, is he okay? Is his shoulder fine? Can he actually throw a ball? Then we saw Jacoby Brissett earlier this season coming for the Hail Mary. We're like, okay, if he can't even throw a Hail Mary, how strong is his arm? Can we trust it? By all means. The last 7 weeks, he has been, the best, literally the best quarterback. I mentioned these stats last week, but when he comes out and he throws, in the last 7 weeks, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. He's thrown 3+ touchdowns every single week in the last 7 weeks. Can anybody stop him? Honestly, I don't think so. Even when they're not winning games, when they're down in points, he's still coming back. He's trying to make his team win these games. And honestly, Andrew Luck, he's just, if of all these quarterbacks, besides Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees, I trust Andrew Luck to get it done more than just about any of them. If Andrew Luck had a little bit more, depth around him at the wide receiver position other than T.Y. Hilton, if instead of having a Chester Rodgers or a Ryan Grant around him, if he had another high caliber wide receiver, it doesn't have to be a super high caliber receiver. It could have just been Dez Bryant this season. If he had a guy like that, by all means, he would just be the number 1 wide receiver, plain and simple. But as of right now, I think he is going to have a great week. If he had a little bit more depth at the wide receiver position around him, he'd be that much better. And if Marlon Mack was a little bit healthier, Yeah, he would really be up there. All right, either way, he's my number 6 this week. Number 7, we have Matt Ryan. Matty Ice playing against the Cowboys. Here's the thing. Matty Ice is in the same position as many of these other teams. He's trying to make a playoff push. He has a matchup this week, which is pretty much the gatekeeper. If the Cowboys can end up beating the Atlanta Falcons this week, that is going to put the Falcons in a very difficult situation. They'll be at 4-6 if they lose this week, and that'll cause a lot of panic because, to be honest, the Falcons, they're going to have to win out from there on out. They're going to have to win 6 games in a row if they even want a wild card spot because, to be honest, the Saints are getting up to 10 wins already, and eventually the Panthers are going to get up there to be the wild card. So the Falcons this week, they're going to have to come out. They're going to have to throw the ball. I know it's a difficult matchup off of points given as of late, and to be honest, the Cowboys have been playing pretty stout on defense. It's a difficult matchup, but I still have a lot of trust in the second best quarterback in fantasy as of right now. That's Matt Ryan. He's my number 7. Number 8, we have Deshaun Watson coming off the bye week, getting a little bit more rapport with Demaryius Thomas this coming week. Hopefully, Kiki Cutie will be healthy. Here's the thing. When you play against the Washington Redskins, you're basically thinking, okay, if I can come out and stop that pass rush as much as I possibly can and make sure my offensive line is stable to a sense, because this offensive line for the Houston Texans, it has been questionable at times. So if he can come out, they can establish a run. They can make sure that they don't, the defensive line, Ryan Kerrigan, doesn't pin back his ears and come after Deshaun Watson. He can have a successful game because he's got the weapons surrounding him in order to help him out. He's got a defense on the other side of the ball to help him out. So Deshaun Watson this week, I honestly think just coming off the bye week, it's going to be something of helpful that is going to be helpful. To be honest, the Washington Redskins, they really can't score. They're going to score maybe 14 points, but when you can't score on a consistent basis in the NFL and you have to play the Texans this week, it's going to give a lot of opportunities to Deshaun Watson, a lot of short field opportunities, and I think he's going to have himself a good week. He's my number 8. Number 9, we have Phillip Rivers playing against the Denver Broncos. Now, here's the thing. Even though they're the Denver Broncos, I'm not really too worried, to be honest. The Chargers have been on fire. They've won, 6 consecutive games? Is it 6? I don't even know. It might be more, to be honest. Let's see here. Okay, here we go, Chargers. How many games have we won in a row? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 in a row. Here comes number 7. To be honest, they play against the Denver Broncos at home this week. Don't have to go to Mile High City. Don't have to play in those in that atmosphere, potentially in the snow. So we won't have to worry about that. Here's the thing. The only issue with Phillip Rivers, even though he's thrown 2 touchdowns every single game this season or more, they've become more of a run team. They're not really depending on Phillip Rivers to use his arm, which is a good thing, to be honest. Going into this season, when you don't have to force Phillip Rivers to throw the ball, he's not going to turn it over as much, which gives their team that much more of an opportunity to win games. And that's what they've been doing as of late. They're not going to really change that formula. That's why I have him at 9 this week. He is probably going to have 2 passing touchdowns, but nothing probably more than that. So he's my number 9 this week. All right, number 10, we have Ben Roethlisberger. Okay, so you play against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that most notably, I've been saying it all week, they beat them twice last season. This is a different Jaguars team. Ben Roethlisberger is coming off of the most points ever scored, I think they said, in franchise history. I swear, that was the stat that I heard. Most points scored. What? No, not combined points. Damn it. All right, we're leaving this, okay? God dang it. Wait, what the heck? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Maybe it was, I don't know. Maybe I heard wrong. But either way, having scored 52 points this past week, that's nothing to take too lightly. That is honestly just a beat-down performance. They beat a pretty good defense, too, in the Panthers. So it's not like they were completely destroying the Raiders or something, right? As of right now, this coming week, I think, yes, he's going to be successful, but he's also going to bump into some struggles here and there. Jalen Ramsey's not a guy that you can completely destroy night in and night out. He's going to have his plays. He's going to make plays. This defense isn't something to sleep on, but I think they're going to use James Conner a little bit more this week. They're going to have to run the ball in order to make themselves relevant. That's how this offense works. They have to set up play action with the run. They have to dictate the game with their offensive line, bruising the defense. So as of right now, I expect James Conner to have a very good week, and I expect Ben Roethlisberger not to struggle per se because he is still in my top 10 quarterbacks. So he's still going to be good, but I don't think he's coming out and throwing 5 touchdowns like he did last week. So he's just my number 10 for this week. Number 11, we have Mitch Trubisky playing against the Vikings defense. Here's the thing. Many of you have asked me, most notably on Twitter, because at Kirchhoff, I see those messages more often because when I'm at work and I have my little 10-minute break, pop up on Twitter, I can see those questions. But if I'm trying to go and I go to YouTube to look at the questions that you guys have sent, there are so many questions. Like, I don't even know where to start. And I'm using the YouTube app. It's really complicated. I don't really want to touch it, right? That's why I come home and I answer the questions here. But I digress. Anyway, so Mitch Trubisky. I told many of you, listen, Trubisky, yes, he's been on fire. He's been good. Except for that one Bills game, he's been great all season long. Okay? He's been consistent. He's been an absolute animal comparatively to what we thought he was going to be this season. Now, especially this past week where he dropped 24 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. 4 total touchdowns. The guy was an animal. So where do I see him for this coming week? I'm just a little worried that this Vikings defense is going to get after him. This is an in-division match. NFC, what are they? The NFC North? Yeah, this is a game that both teams are very familiar with each other, and I think it's going to be a lower scoring contest. I don't think they're going to be completely shooting each other out because with both of these really high caliber defenses, they're going to give each other problems. And that's why I have Mitch Trubisky a little bit lower. I can't really trust the Bears running game. And then when you have to force Mitch Trubisky to throw the ball a lot, that might put him in an uncomfortable situation. So yes, he was able to destroy the Lions, but the Vikings are a completely different monster. He's my number 11 this week. Number 12, speaking of the other quarterback across the field in that matchup, Kirk Cousins. Now, here's the thing. He's pretty much in the same boat. They're playing against a tough defense. The Bears are nothing to mess around with. And with the troubles his offensive line has had this season, I can't really trust in the fact that Kirk Cousins is going to have a clean pocket. He's going to be able to survive the pass rush of Khalil Mack. This coming week, obviously, that's not the only thing he's dealing with. He has to deal with being able to use the run game, have Dalvin Cook be successful. If he's going to be successful, they're going to have to use him often. And when they do, that is going to hurt a little bit of Kirk Cousins' production per se, because now you have a guy other than Latavius Murray that could potentially come in and steal a couple touchdowns, steal a couple touches that may have been passes. The way I see it, I don't know. As of right now, Kirk Cousins, as of late, throughout the season, he hasn't been putting up great numbers. Therefore, I'm having him as a lower tier QB1 for this coming week. He's my number 12. Number 13, Marcus Mariota, playing against the Indianapolis Colts defense. He should have a good week. He's coming off of 2 fantastic performances in which he's used his legs often. And the team has just been performing without much hesitation. They haven't lost a beat. Against the Cowboys, they looked great. And against the Patriots, they looked even better. So going against the Colts shouldn't be much of a struggle for Marcus Mariota in this offense. He's looking healthy. He's looking good. He's using his weapons. He's finally getting Corey Davis those 10 targets that we expected on a weekly basis. He's using Jonnu Smith, which shouldn't have been a surprise. But honestly, since they lost Delaney Walker, they didn't use the tight end. We would have honestly expected, okay, you lost Delaney Walker. Jonnu Smith should have came in and been that tight end that is getting 60 targets, right? Didn't happen. But as of late, it started to get there. Now that they've had Dion Lewis become the number 1 back, and they're using him exclusively, giving him 20 touches, and they're dictating the game with their defense and their offensive line and being able to run the ball, it has opened up more opportunity for Marcus Mariota, and he's been great. So he's my number 13 this week. All right, number 14, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, here's my thought process behind this. He's really volatile. He's either going to come out and throw for 3 touchdowns or come out and throw 3 interceptions. There's also combinations where he comes out and throws 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Which one are we going to get this week? To be honest, I'm uncertain. I don't know how this can potentially go because there's always a chance that Fitz comes out, couple tip passes turn into interceptions, and Jameis Winston's out in play, So for those of you who own Fitz, be careful. Approach it as carefully as you possibly can. There are other good options at the quarterback position that may be available. But as of right now, he is still a good enough quarterback when playing at his maximum capacity to be fantasy relevant. We've seen it all season long. He had a hiccup this past week. Hopefully we can turn the page and get to getting back to a little bit more Fitz magic. All right, he's my number 14. Number 15, we have Dak Prescott, who is pretty much the same scenario as Marcus Mariota. It's literally the same thing. They're relying on the run game as of late. They're relying on their defense. With that, he's using his legs. He is finding his number one target, and they're actually moving the ball. They're spreading out the offense, and they're being consistent. It is literally the same thing. Both of these teams are built similarly. They have good defenses. They have good offensive lines. They want to run the ball, and they want to make sure that their quarterback, who has the ability to run the ball, does so. They look similar. I think both these guys, Mariota and Dak Prescott, will be good. Dak Prescott this week, playing against one of the easier matchups in the NFL. He has the Falcons defense, who he should be able to torch by all means. So I have a lot of confidence in him. He's a guy that you can probably go pick up off waivers and start him this week. He's my number 15. Number 16, the last quarterback I wanted to mention, is Matthew Stafford. He may not have Marvin Jones, but even in that scenario, the Panthers are still giving up the 5th most points to the quarterback position. And to be honest, I think Matthew Stafford's capable enough, even with the Bears defense just coming after him last week. He still managed to find himself some fantasy value late in the game. Ended up getting 20 fantasy points off of a couple touchdown passes. I can see him doing it again, and it wouldn't be a surprise to me. So that is why he's my number 16. Those are my top 16 quarterbacks for this coming week. These are the rankings, and that's basically it. If you have any questions, go around the comment section. Otherwise, we're moving on to the tight ends right away. No hesitation. All right, let's talk about the tight end matchups for Week 11. Who's giving up the most points to the tight end position? Well, as of right now, it's the Carolina Panthers. Well, this past week, we saw Jesse James and we saw Vance McDonald giving up a boat. I mean, they gave up, 2 touchdowns to the tight end position of the Steelers? So I'm not really surprised in that extent, considering they were, even last week, giving up the most points to the tight end position. So what does this mean as of right now? The Carolina Panthers, they're playing against the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions don't really have a tight end ever since they lost. I mean, they've never really even used a tight end. Even when they had Ebron, they never used him to the effect that they really should have. We always thought, oh my God, Ebron's going to be great. They never used Ebron. And now that we've seen him with the Colts, goodness gracious, this dude is an animal. You just needed to put him in the right offense, and he's found his place. So as of right now, I'm not really sure if you can buy in on any tight ends from the Detroit Lions. It's not really something that I would even look forward to. So as of right now, that matchup, you probably just can't even take advantage of it. All right, number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers giving up the 2nd most points to the tight end position. That means Evan Engram should have a good week. By all means, Evan Engram, this is your time. You got to be able to come out, pick up some garbage time catches here and there, just like you did this last week with a couple grabs in the 4th quarter. I expect you to have a decent week. You're good enough tight end. I understand last season your stats may have been inflated because of the fact that you were literally the only option on the offense. When Odell Beckham was out, Sterling Shepard was out, Brandon Marshall was out, they had no running game. You were literally the only part of the offense. So perhaps last season, your stats were inflated. Many of us overdrafted you to the capacity that you were playing at. But to be honest, your injury this season has kind of slowed you down. Hopefully you've gotten back to it. Eli's got a good matchup. You've got a good matchup. You should be decent this week. Moving on to the 3rd. My goodness. How do the Cincinnati Bengals just give a bunch of points everywhere, right? Their defense must be terrible. And to be honest, they kind of are. The Cincinnati Bengals, they play against the Ravens this week. I don't even want to touch Ravens tight ends. I don't know who's going to catch the ball. Is it going to be Hayden Hurst? Is it going to be Max Williams? Is it going to be, what's his name? Goodness gracious. I was going to say Dennis Pitta. Mark Andrews. I don't know who it's going to be. So at that point, we're moving on. New England Patriots giving up a lot of points, but they're on a bye. The Steelers gave up a lot of points to tight end. Well, they didn't really do much to Greg Olsen last week because that Panthers offense fell apart. We're moving on. The Raiders give up a lot of points to tight end. But then again, the Raiders give up a lot of points to everything. They're trying to throw games. So you can start your Ricky Seals-Jones. No big deal. The Cleveland Browns on a bye. Jacksonville Jaguars giving up a bunch of points to the tight end. Not a surprise. And that could be good for Vance McDonald. Vance McDonald, even though, he is a weekly start, right? Many of us know that the depth at tight end isn't very wide. So as of right now, Vance McDonald, you might as well. Kansas City giving up a bunch of points. That's not bad for Gerald Everett. Indianapolis, maybe John Smith ends up figuring it out this week. But who's not really giving up much points to the tight end? The Tennessee Titans giving up the fewest amount of points to the tight end position. How interesting is that? They play against the team that has the most tight end production this season, with Eric Ebron being an animal this year. Let me go find this stat. So Eric Ebron, thus far this season, he currently has 39 receptions, 463 yards, and 9 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. So he has 10 total touchdowns. And to be honest, the tight end position of the Colts, they've got a three-headed monster over there with Doyle, Ebron, and Mo Alley Cox. Could end up, adjusting these rankings here and putting up a lot of points with the tight end position on the Titans. For those of you who are questioning whether you should play a Colts tight end, by all means you should, because they are the main part of this offense, without a doubt. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. The Packers, they've already played. The Eagles, Ben Watson could struggle. The Jets, the Saints. The Saints giving up only to 20. Oh, wow. Okay, they're pretty stout against the tight end position. Doesn't matter. Zach Ertz has to start, guys. Come on. You know what? I'm just leaving this, okay? We're just going to go straight to the rankings. Do it this as you may. You can go through it, check it out. See who, depending on your team, has more of an advantageous matchup for this coming week. Otherwise, we're getting right into it. Let's go talk about some tight ends, shall we? Okay, so again, rankings are subject to change. Jimmy Graham and Nick Vannett have already played. Jimmy Graham left the game with a thumb injury last time I checked. I don't know what happened. He was going to make a block. Probably broke his thumb. Legit, he probably broke his thumb. It happens. You get it caught in a helmet, in the face mask, and just gets pulled the wrong way. It happens. Either way, let's talk about the tight end position for Week 11 of the fantasy football season. We have here Zach Ertz as my number one. I have to. He had 40 points in PPR scoring leagues last week. How can I? It's it. Until Travis Kelce can come out and prove me, otherwise wrong, Zach Ertz, you are now going forward to be the number one tight end in fantasy football. That's it, plain and simple. Why are you starting him? Because he's the best tight end in the league. Why should you start him? Because he puts up a boatload of points every single week. In fact, I actually kind of want to see how many points he puts up a week. Let's go ahead and read this, shall we? Oh, my goodness. There's only been 2 weeks this season in half-point PPR. To be honest, in full PPR, he hasn't come below 10 points per game. That's it. That's all I need to say. Zach Ertz, you're my number one. You're a stud. All right, number 2, Travis Kelce, Mr. 1A, 1B, right? Travis Kelce, you playing a pretty good matchup. To be honest, when everybody else is trying to key in on stopping Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill, you'll end up finding yourself a good week. This past week wasn't really your week because Tyreek Hill was pretty much taking all of the touchdowns away, those 75-yard bombs. It ends the drive pretty quickly. It doesn't give you an opportunity to understand. It happens. This week, because of such a high-scoring back-and-forth game, you'll get more opportunity. You'll be fantasy relevant. You're my number 2 this week. Number 3, we have O.J. Howard. Now, I understand O.J. Howard came off a very bad week, but that entire Tampa Bay offense, they didn't play well. That doesn't mean you shouldn't start O.J. Howard. He is a start every single week. He is the 6th best tight end in half-point PPR scoring this season. He's come out of nowhere, to be honest, and he's been fantastic. I have a lot of confidence in him this week. To be honest, other than Kittle, there really isn't another better tight end as of this season. Kittle would be the number 3 if he wasn't on bye, and O.J. Howard would be number 4. I like him a lot this week. He is for sure a guy you should start. I don't care what happened to him last week. If you just look at his points scored this season, it's an anomaly that he ended up only scoring 2 points, right? Because he's used to, the weeks prior to this past week, 19.3, 14.8, 9.2, 14.2. He's an animal, and you should start him. He's my number 3. Number 4, we have Greg Olsen playing against the Detroit Lions defense. I think the Lions, giving up a lot of points to the tight end position, and in fact, giving a lot of points to everybody in every position. Cam Newton, to be honest, other than Christian McCaffrey, his next highest targeted receiver has been Greg Olsen as of late, and I think that is going to sustain. Greg Olsen, we didn't see him much last season because of his broken foot, that injury that he sustained. Obviously, he came back later on in the season, was able to be decently relevant. This season also struggled with an injury with his foot. So here's the thing, we haven't seen a lot of Greg Olsen as of late, but when we do, he is Cam Newton's best friend. He is his guy. He is the check down guy. He is the guy that he wants to find, and he often finds over the middle. So Greg Olsen being that number 1 guy other than McCaffrey there, you're my number 4 this week. Number 5, we have Trey Burton of the Bears. Now, okay, here's the thing. The linebackers of the Vikings, they've struggled this season. We know that for a fact. And to be honest, when they have to guard Trey Burton this week, it may, they might find some trouble in paradise over there. Honestly, Trey Burton, of the tight ends that are available below, he is probably going to get I don't know if he's going to get more targets than guys, but he always ends up being like in the top 10. He always ends up around that area. So I have trust in him. If you can continue to somehow end up in the top 10, let me just read some stats. Let's see. In the last couple weeks, 10 points, 23 points, 3 points, 9 points, 8 points. He ends up being decent. Yes, he had one hiccup performance, but he ends up being decent whether he's catching a touchdown or not, to be honest. So, Trey Burton, he's my number 5. Number 6, we have Austin Hooper, who's getting more targets from this offense. And to be honest, he probably should get more targets than he is. He's being used way more than we thought he would be because, the tight end position for the Falcons since Tony Gonzalez left really wasn't utilized at all. Austin Hooper really didn't look like much, in the years prior. But as of right now, he can be a guy. He is a top 10 tight end this season. He's going to be a guy that can be consistently depended on. This past week had 11 targets, 10 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. That is something that I want to see them continue to go to. 11 targets, that is something we've seen multiple times this season. We've seen him have 10-plus targets prior in the season. So if they can get back to that this week against Dallas, I can see him having a good week. He's my number 6. Number 7, we have Jack Doyle. Now you may be thinking, how is Eric Ebron not above Jack Doyle? Guys, 3 touchdowns is unsustainable. You cannot tell me he is going to score another 2 touchdowns this week. If he does it, by all means, he's a legend. Okay? He is a monster. If he ends up doing that, it's insane. Okay? Jack Doyle is a guy that has played, the snap count, I think Jack Doyle played about 90% of the offensive snaps, while on the other hand, Eric Ebron played less than 40% of the offensive snaps. So yes, Ebron came in and scored touchdowns, but he didn't play majority of the game. And to be honest, a lot of his touchdowns could have been considered, a little bit lucky, especially that one catch that he went for 60-plus yards. That stuff is an anomaly, and I don't expect that to happen. Therefore, I have Jack Doyle at 7 because I think he is going to get majority of the tight end targets. He is a guy that you can depend upon down the field. You don't have to get him in the game only in the red zone. They like to use 2 tight end sets. So, yes, both these tight ends will be relevant, but I expect Jack Doyle to get more targets. He's my number 7 this week. Number 8, we have Vance McDonald, who's going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who give a lot of points up to the tight end position. He has been the number 1 tight end there. Even though Jesse James lurks around and steals some points here and there, I still think Vance McDonald will be good. He continues to find targets and continues to find himself in pretty decent situations in which he's scoring fantasy points. Thus far this season, what is he? 1, 2, 3. The number 11, number 12 quarterback and a half-point PPR. Here's the thing. Just like any other quarterback, any other tight end, they're very touchdown dependent, okay? That's the only situation here. So can he score a touchdown, yes or no? If the answer in your mind is no, right, then you should move him below Jared Cook, plain and simple. But this week, I think he has a pretty good opportunity to catch a touchdown with all the other pieces on this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. he's the guy that could sneak in for a touchdown here or there. All right, number 9, we have Eric Ebron, who I mentioned before. Listen, I don't expect him to catch 2 touchdowns, but 1 touchdown, sure. 30 yards receiving, 3 catches, and a touchdown in a half-point PPR, you got yourself 10 fantasy points. I can see that happening this week. Absolutely. Therefore, he's my number 9. I don't expect him to put up 28 fantasy points again, and neither should you, to be honest. So he's my number 9. Let's just be safe with that. That's a good spot for him. Evan Engram playing against Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, giving up, the second most fantasy points to the tight end position. Evan Engram, you should find yourself some pretty good fantasy value this week. You haven't been great all season long. You've caught a couple garbage time touchdowns here and there throughout the season, but other than that, you haven't been great. Hopefully you'll be able to turn it around with this good matchup, and Eli, picking up his play a little bit here and there in the offense, maybe trying to pick up a win here this week. So I expect you to be good. You're my last of the top 10 tight ends for week 11 of the fantasy football season. Moving on to the last couple guys. Okay, now here's the thing. Let me preface this, okay? These guys are extremely touchdown dependent. Now, number 11, we have Jared Cook. Jared Cook has been used less and less as the Raiders are trying to throw games. They know, and you know what? Jared Cook is a very good tight end. Derek Carr loves to throw him the ball. What we have to do is we have to limit the amount that Derek Carr and Jared Cook are on the field at the same time. Derek Carr is the quarterback. Great. We're never going to play Jared Cook. When Jared Cook even gets in the game, he looks like a good tight end. Last week, ended up putting up decent fantasy points, even though he wasn't used often. Had 7 fantasy points and 9 targets. But when they're trying to limit, when they're not trying to score, they'll take him out of the game. So the question is, can you trust the Raiders offense with Jared Cook? Not really sure, but I think decently could have a sneaky good 7 to 8 fantasy points this week. That's hopefully his floor, because obviously they're not trying to win games. They're not going to find themselves in the red zone often with Jared Cook and a ball in his hand catching a touchdown. All right, number 12, we have Jordan Reed. Hopefully, Jordan Reed, please. It's not even Jordan Reed. It's more like Alex Smith. Hopefully, Alex Smith can find him the ball. That's all we need. We need 10 targets to this guy. Why are you throwing the ball to Josh Doxson? Why are you throwing the ball to Maurice Harris? Stop, please. Throw the ball to Jordan Reed. Give us another fantasy option that we can actually use within that offense, because to be honest, it's a wasteland other than, AP sometimes. So as of right now, Jordan Reed, hopefully you can be good. It's a decent matchup. Maybe you can find yourself scoring some sort of fantasy points. You're my number 12 this week. Number 13, CJ Uzomah. Here's the thing about Uzomah. He really hasn't done anything, period. I don't remember CJ Uzomah doing anything relevant as of late. Let's see. Yep. He hasn't done anything since week 7. And we're in week 11. So with that considered, is it worth a play? Potentially not. But to be honest, when what's his name? When AJ Green is out, who else are they going to throw the ball to if the Baltimore Ravens are locking everybody down? So maybe he has a good opportunity this week. He's my number 13. Number 14, Ricky Seals-Jones, which, as I mentioned earlier on in the waiver wire video, he could be a decent play this week. Now, the question is, again, is he going to catch that touchdown? Is he going to have enough targets? These are literally the questions that we see with number 14, 15, 16, and 17. Will they get the targets? Will they find the touchdown? That is a great question. Jeff Heuerman on the very bottom, number 17. He's coming off of a week, he's coming off a bye week, but the week prior had 11 targets, 10 receptions. Is that something of chance? Did that just happen to come out of nowhere, or was that a part of the game plan? I'm not sure. I'm not in that locker room, so I don't exactly know, because we haven't seen Jeff Heuerman used to that extent at all prior to 2 weeks ago. So can we expect the Broncos to come back to that kind of an offense where they're throwing the ball 10 times to the tight end? I'm not sure. Ben Watson, on a week that we thought he could have been good, shows up and doesn't catch a single ball. He goes with a goose egg when the team scored 51 points. 51 total points. Didn't do anything. Can we trust him? Gerald Everett, you're a tight end on an offense that wants to throw the ball to Cooks, Woods, Kupp, and Gurley. Kupp is gone. Perhaps you have an opportunity. Otherwise, it's going to Josh Reynolds. Can you touch that touchdown? Not sure. That's the entire point. The tight end position is very dependent on the touchdown unless you're within the top 10. That's pretty much it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you have any questions, go down in the comment section. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow with the Fantasy Gauntlet video. Give you guys some insight on that. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I'm very tired. I want to go to sleep so that Friday can show up. We can end it, finish the week off strong, and go into next week, which is going to be pretty hectic, to be honest. Next week's going to consist of a lot of me not sleeping because I'm going to have to make a lot of videos prior to that Thursday night. Thanksgiving has, 3 games? I think they have the Cowboys, Cowboys, Redskins next week, Saints, and Falcons, and they have the Bears and Lions. It's going to be crazy next week. So, anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, I will get to you by Saturday for sure. That is a given. You guys know that for a fact. So, until then, I'll see you guys. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't already, subscribe, click that like button. See you guys.